Hello, faithful. Welcome to the 49ers Plus podcast. I'm Al Moriello, and this is your source for the most objective 49ers discussion and analysis. And today, we're going to be recapping the 49ers' ugly 35-10 loss to the Buffalo Bills, a loss that we all should have seen coming. We're going to be discussing stats and thoughts from the game. More whining that Brock isn't the guy, get rid of him by all these bitches on social media, regular media, you name it. The impact that injuries has had this season, bigger than you think. Fans wanting to blow it up. We're going to discuss why it's more a retool and reload situation. And then end result takeaways from this game, what it means moving forward, being 5-7 and at the bottom of the NFC West. So let's get right into it. Ugly game outside of the first drive where the Niners got up 3-0. Otherwise, the game basically went the way that I thought it would go. I had actually Buffalo winning 30-13. So my bad for shortchanging the Bills by 5 points and thinking that the Niners could score 3 times, although they would have if Kyle Juszczyk didn't fumble going into the end zone at the 1 yard line. But let's just talk about some overall stats to the game. Niners got outgained 372-239, lost the turnover battle 3-0, lost the first down battle 20-15, and Buffalo had 7 more minutes in time of possession. Not a lot of passes all around. In fact, both quarterbacks only threw 18 passes. Brock was 11 for 18, 94 yards and 2 sacks. He did have a fumble and 3 or 4 drops. Let's call it 3 drops by his receivers, or else his completion percentage stat line would have looked exactly like Josh Allen's, which was 14 for 18, 152 yards and 2 touchdowns. Brock wouldn't have had any touchdowns. The running game led by Jordan Mason after McCaffrey went out with injury, 13 for 78. McCaffrey was good while he was in, 7 for 53. As a team, they ran the ball 27 times for 153 yards and a touchdown. Bills just ran it better, 38 for 220 and 3 scores. Receiving, Juwan Jennings led the way, 3 for 56. Debo, 4 for 20. McCaffrey, 2 for 14. And Kittle with only 1 reception. So the game started a bit promising, right? Defense came out. You saw the energy on that first third down stop, got Buffalo to go 3 and out. Niners go down the field, kick a field goal, go up 3-0. They would have had a second 3 and out drive if not for a penalty on Charvarius Ward. And these small things that wind up being big things in the most untimely of manner really are a microcosm of the 49ers season. We'll get into more of them, or at least one more of them later on. You saw it. It was a mini blizzard. There wasn't supposed to be any snow, but the football god said, hey, let's play in some snow. And obviously it affected both teams equally. I know you had, Evan Anderson slipped coming out of his rush stance. Jennings slipped, coming into motion. But for the most part, the footing, you didn't see massive slips. I mean, Ricky Pearsall had a slip on a deep corner or a deep out route that Brock would have hit him on, if he didn't fall. So, all right, right there, if you want to say it affected the Niners a little bit more, but it wasn't a huge factor in swinging the outcome of the game, right? 2 of those plays were pre-snap. One was Ricky Pearsall. I think it was like in the third quarter, which ultimately wouldn't have mattered since they lost by 25. But both running games were in control in the first half into the third quarter, and Buffalo kind of maintained that throughout the game. But I do agree with what Chris Collinsworth said, that there could have been a little bit more, I don't want to say aggressiveness in the play calling, but the advantage that your team has in snow and slippery weather and rain is they know where they're going. The defense doesn't. And you're not going to be running these double or triple move routes other than maybe a stop and go. But the short to intermediate passing game, I think, could have been there in greater quantity. Now, we're not saying it would have been a bombs away Brock game by any means. And especially the way the game kind of got away from San Francisco in the second quarter with being 21-3. They could have thrown it more. They could have thrown it more early, not saying it would have changed the outcome. It wouldn't have, but it would have given Buffalo a little bit more to think about defensively, even though the ground game was working for both teams. Obviously, one of the differences is when, James Cook, gets a crease and gets to the outside, He was gone. That's 7 points. McCaffrey gets a crease. He gets a shoestring tackle, which may or may not have contributed to his PCL injury, in which he went down and out on the next play, was able to jog off the field. Of course, you have your internet doctors saying, you see how the way the calf is quivering, it's an Achilles. Newsflash, morons, you're not really able to jog off the field with an Achilles injury. If it's a PCL strain, tear, a tear is not like an ACL tear, any type of strain. If you sprain or strain your ankle, you're literally tearing the ligaments in your ankle and you need time for them to heal. The ACL is a bit different because it's unable to repair itself on its own. That's why you need either, patellar tendon or a hamstring or a cadaver, ACL graft. Other ligaments in the knee, PCL being one of them, he's going to be okay even if he's done for the rest of the season. At this point, you might as well just sit him out anyway. Re-elevate Patrick Taylor from the practice squad to the 53. McCaffrey goes on IR. And that, unfortunately ends his season. Kyle's game plan seemed more conservative than the Bills' game plan, by offensively, at least, by Joe Brady. Obviously, Allen, the bigger, stronger arm quarterback, bigger hands, can drive the ball more so in weather like this than Brock. We understand that that's a limitation. It's not a reason why you throw Brock away, moron fans, because he can't play in cold or wet weather. Packer game last year in the playoffs, anybody started out slow, was masterful when he needed to be. Buffalo's a better team, even though they're a middling team statistically, at least when it comes to yards allowed and yards gained. And the Niners, going into the game and probably still coming out of this game, have them beat in every yards metric: total, passing, rushing, allowed, and produced. It's the points scored and points allowed where the Bills had the significant advantage over San Francisco. And they had an advantage in both, the game last night. But that's totally representative of this 49er team. They can gain yards. They can't score points. They can't stop teams from scoring when they need to. They can't stop teams from getting some yards sometimes when they need to. That last drive by the Seahawks and the last drive by the Cardinals and the last drive by the Rams, they couldn't get stops when they needed to, and they couldn't get them against Buffalo. Although if they got another stop or two, whoopee, they would have lost by 10 or 17. Does that really matter? No. But I think Kyle could have had Brock throw the ball more. He had the shoulder. If he wasn't 100% healthy, they weren't going to play and risk further injury to Brock, whether it's the rest of this year or into next year. If it was anything involving, his labrum or anything that could have gone tear or pop. If he just had shoulder soreness based on something in the Seahawk game or the Buccaneer game before that, I don't think even Brock knows, based on interviews I've listened to, how he got hurt. And that's fine. I mean, Christ, I woke up with shoulder soreness 4 days ago. It's, granted I'm in my 40s and I'm not throwing and getting hit by humongous human beings. Shit just happens sometimes, right? But it happens more so when you're playing a contact sport like football. But I do think, you saw it on the out to Jennings. You saw it on the out or the corner to Pearsall. Brock has had the arm to play in that game. Was he going to make all the throws that Josh Allen made? Of course not. We know that, and that's okay. Totally okay. But I think in some ways, Kyle's game plan did not do the Niners a service. And it just goes to show, again, Niners drive, first point scoring drive, field goal, not 7. Next drive, Moody misses a 45-yard field goal. There was some punts sprinkled in. Last drive of the half was a 55-yard field goal. And if anybody thought Moody had any business making that, you should get your head examined. And we're going to go into that actually in a little bit more. 3 turnovers. Brock fumbled the ball in a big outcry. See, his hands are too small to hold a wet ball. Shit happens, guys. And of course the Niners don't recover that. And of course Juice fumbles at the 1-yard line. And of course Debo fumbles on a kick return, and the Niners don't get any of those 3. That's just the way the season's going. It sucks. They shouldn't be putting the ball on the ground. It's bad luck, but of course there isn't a Niner there to recover that. At least in Debo's kick return, someone was there to recover it, but of course it squirted out of his hands and chest and was recovered by Buffalo. The Juszczyk fumble, not a terrible decision. Kyle's done that a lot, right? Giving it to the up back, trying to surprise the defense. It wasn't a totally clean handoff. Kyle did wind up getting it and coughed it up. People that are saying, "Oh, of course you give it to the fullback instead of one of the running backs that are running well." It's just bad luck, guys. It's just bad luck. It's not. I mean, it is Juszczyk's fault, but he's been pretty sure-handed, right? The stat is he hasn't lost a fumble since 2018. Granted, he doesn't get the ball a lot, but if you combine maybe carries and receptions, it's not a total garbage stat. We knew they were going to lose this game. We knew they were going to lose the Packer game. The sloppiness in the Green Bay game with Brandon Allen and missing so many players was surprising, but with the number of players they missed, maybe it's 50% surprising, 75, 25%, whatever amount you want to attribute, how surprised you were with the way they lost. Last night with the snow, opportunities, 2 good kickoff returns by Debo. One ended up with maybe 3 good kickoff returns by Debo. Let's say at least 2. One ended up in a fumble. This is what the 2024 49ers are. Injured, not executing, bad luck at times, and untimely penalties or situations where they do something stupid, which can fall on coaching, but are we going to blame Kyle for Juszczyk's fumble? Are we going to blame Kyle for Debo's fumble? If you want to blame Kyle for putting Debo back there, I think that would be stupid. He was giving them a bit more of an element. And just like the Packer game in the second half, Debo had a big run back to start the second half. And then I think that was what led to the Juszczyk fumble. I could be mistaken. These are the 2024 San Francisco 49ers. There are multiple variables at play as to why they are a 5-7 team. Offensively, defensively, coaching, injuries, undisciplined play, sometimes stupid things that are going on. At some point, some of it is a coaching thing. Of course, you can't absolve coaching, but some of it is a player's thing. Having untimely holds or illegal blocks or false starts or dropping passes like Ronnie Bell, who was cut. Ronnie Bell cut earlier in the week. They would rather have not had 6 receivers. They rather had 5 receivers than 6 receivers, although they needed to make a cut because they promoted Nick McLeod, formerly of the Giants, recently of the practice squad, to the 53, mainly because Demo was out. So they needed a 5th cornerback on the team. Well, they probably could have gotten away with 4, and Darrell Luter was put on IR a couple of weeks ago. They probably could have got away with 4 cornerbacks, given how much the Bills weren't throwing the ball. And, Sorensen too, and for Buffalo, right? Neither team did anything schematically differently to stop the run. Nobody loaded up the box. Nobody had 5 down linemen, which I know I've been beating a drum for a month or 2 at this rate. They played with their 4-man line, their linebackers, their nickel, whatever it's going to be. There weren't adjustments, and some plays runs were stopped, but most of the time each team was gashing the other's defense on the ground. And if we thought that Nick Sorensen if we saw Nick Sorensen not adjusting in fair weather, in a dome, in rain, certainly wasn't going to adjust in snow. But we'll talk more about the Sorensen stuff in a couple minutes. The cacophony of Brock not being the guy. Loud. Turn on your local if you're in the Bay Area, KNBR. Obviously, anything on social media. I'm sure they're talking about it since it was a nationally televised game. Brock wasn't the issue yesterday. He wasn't the main issue yesterday. Did he help matters? Not so much. Was it a game where he should have been able to put the team on his shoulders or his right arm to win? No, not in those conditions. Remember the game, couple years ago, was it a Buffalo, New England game? Nobody threw the ball. I don't remember if it was either just cold or snowing. New England won the game. What was it? I forget. I want to say 7-3, but I could wildly be wrong about that. Why didn't Josh Allen take over that game? Right? Big, strong, thoroughbred, 6'4", 235 cannon arm. Why didn't Josh Allen at least throw for 100, 150 yards? And maybe he did, but at least get his team into the end zone. Sometimes the elements are too much for your team or your quarterback. We know Brock's physical limitations. I get it. He's not going to win a long jump contest. He's not going to win a long throw contest, a 40-yard dash and agility. We all get it, but that doesn't mean you throw him away. But the cacophony of morons, we could say cacophony of cocksuckers, just to say the word cock, twice, or I guess 3 times that time. Now he's injury prone. Morons. He's missed 1 game due to injury. Last game. Played every game, including the Eagle game where he didn't have a UCL in 2022. Played every game in 2023 except for week 18 because they had the number 1 bye, the bye clinched. Just missed last week. Otherwise, played every game. How is he injury prone if your quarterback has missed 1 game in, let's say, 2 full seasons? 5 regular season games last year, 11 regular season games this year. Internet doctors connecting the dots between his UCL and his shoulder. Oh, but he's wearing the brace on the sidelines. And you don't know why. He was cleared from the UCL late last season, November, in terms of like the rehab for that being, I don't want to say officially done because you're always working out. He's going to be working out his arms, his forearms, his shoulder, his biceps. Football players need to, right? So there's always going to be some level of, I don't know if you want to call it rehabilitation, but strengthening the body, not just the arm and the elbow and the shoulder, strengthening the body. But saying he's injury prone is disingenuous, borderline stupid, borderline reckless. He plays bad in bad weather. I wouldn't say Josh Allen played great. Yeah, people are going to start blowing him because of that whole throw to Amari Cooper and then throw back to Josh Allen. That was a heady play. And then he dove in. That great. And then he had another rushing touchdown. Josh Allen played well. I don't know if that was a game that's going to separate him for MVP. I mean, he played well. Let's not go nuts. 14 of 18, what was he, $125? I mean, $152. I got the numbers reversed. He played well in the snow. You give Josh Allen kudos, right? But Brock didn't play terribly. I think the game plan was a little bit too. I would have preferred maybe Kyle to be 15 to 20% more aggressive. I don't know what that looks like. Does it look like 3 or 4 more passes? 2 or 3 of those passes maybe in the 10 to 15 yard range. I don't know, but it felt a little bit too conservative. It's not because he doesn't trust Brock to throw. It's not because Brock's shoulder or his elbow wasn't good to throw in those conditions. Nobody was throwing bombs downfield. Brock threw the one that got intercepted, but there was an illegal contact. And I'm wondering if Brock saw the flag and he decided to just throw it up and see what was going to happen. But let's play devil's advocate and say he didn't. Then it was a bad decision. Quarterbacks are allowed to make bad decisions, and that was one of them. And it would have been an interception that wouldn't have changed the outcome of the game one bit. He didn't play great against the Browns in the rain last season, but got Moody in position for a game-winning field goal. Missed it, or else that narrative would have looked or sounded a whole lot different. Did he play well against the Packers last year in the playoffs? Put the team on his shoulders, got first downs, got scores with his arms and his legs when he had to have it. And Jordan Love was the one that choked it away with 2 interceptions. Troy Aikman, Hall of Famer for the Cowboys, famously admitted he could not throw a ball in wet weather. There's a lot of quarterbacks that have trouble throwing the ball in inclement weather. Now I feel like we're grasping for stuff to complain about. Do some quarterbacks throw it better than others in bad weather? Sure. But San Francisco is not Chicago, Buffalo, Minnesota if they played outside, New England, the Giant Stadium, Giants or Jets. He's not going to have to worry about that. They play in the West where they're going to, even in the playoffs, they're probably not making it this year, but maybe they'd have to go to Philadelphia, right? That's not Buffalo. Brock may not be a quarterback that can thrive in Chicago or Buffalo, but he's in San Francisco, so it don't matter. Drew Brees was probably a quarterback. Russell Wilson, Chad Pennington. They're probably quarterbacks that can't thrive in cold weather or overcome cold weather, pseudo mini blizzards, driving rainstorms. That's okay. Not a lot of quarterbacks can. If the Patriots and Mac Jones, I think was the quarterback at the time, and Josh Allen could have overcome that cold weather, it wouldn't have been a 7-3 low scoring game that the Patriots won however many years ago. Tua is a warm weather quarterback. Went to Kansas City, couldn't do shit in the playoffs last year and basically in the regular season this year on Thanksgiving night. We're reaching. And then, of course, the quotes of this, paraphrasing quotes. The first one, he's not worth $60 million. I agree. I don't think any quarterback is worth $60 million. If $60 million is your argument, your barometer, then you're going to lose, because Brock is not going to be getting a market resetting deal. He's not. He'll be getting in the 50s. So everybody just needs to start coping now. The other one, one that I saw last night, and the twats were out, they were twatting. They were, fisting each other's assholes and trying to really just complain and whine and Brock's not it and Kyle and da-da. One quote was specifically dumb: trade him and keep looking for the guy. Let's play this out with this mega cunt who said this. You trade Brock Purdy, you have no viable option at quarter. More than likely, right? More than likely, you have no viable option at quarterback, and you suck for the next 2 or 3 years. I guarantee you this scumbag will be complaining, why are the Niners this bad? Why can't the Niners find a quarterback? And eventually, why did they get rid of Purdy? Because all these assholes change their tune. They write their posts. I'm a sentence creator. On social media, they create their narrative based on what's happening in the moment. Everybody forgets last year MVP candidate. Everybody forgets how many games in a row he won last year. Brock's having a more difficult season this year. The whole team is having a more difficult season this year. But in the NFL, fairly or unfairly, too much praise is heaped on the quarterback and too much blame is given to him when things go wrong. Trade him and keep looking for the guy. The Browns have been looking for the guy since Bernie Kosar in the late 80s. The Jets have been looking for the guy, if you want to say, since Namath, or maybe more recently, Ken O'Brien, Chad Pennington, if he tickles your fancy, but you're going on 20 to 30 years of looking. The Titans, since Steve McNair, you're going back again 20 years. The Dolphins, since Marino. Is Tua really the guy? No playoff wins? Is he the guy? He got paid like the guy, 50 plus million. The Bears since forever. And maybe Caleb Williams is the guy. Maybe he's not. And there are, a handful of maybe other teams that you think maybe has Kyler Murray. Is he the guy in Arizona? They've really only had Kurt Warner as a viable quarterback in their history. Jacksonville hasn't had a quarterback since Mark Brunell. Is Trevor Lawrence really the guy? And I understand to a point the argument of, well, just because you paid Tua and Lawrence and Goff, even though he's having a pretty good season, and Jalen Hurts, all these quarterbacks that maybe don't deserve it, doesn't mean you have to pay Brock. Well, yeah, you do. Because that's what the market is saying. Quarterbacks of that tier, of that caliber. And I can argue, he's of the caliber of Love, Tua, Hurts, Lawrence, Prescott, Goff, Murray, Stroud. He is. Here's what Brock has done so far. I said this on my last podcast, just in case, you didn't listen or watch, and totally okay. If you're listening or watching now, I greatly appreciate it. Brock's 2023 was 16 games, 4,280 yards, 31 touchdowns, and 11 interceptions. Completion percentage in the high 60s. 2022 and 2024 combined, which was 5 games in 2022, his rookie year, regular season, and 11 games this year is 16 games, 4,081 yards, 26 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, mid 60% completion percentage. You guys want to let that go? Not you guys that are listening, because I know I have the smartest listener and viewership out there, but there are fans out there that want to let that go. An MVP nominated season, 2 big playoff come from behind wins, going to the Super Bowl and giving the team the lead late in the fourth quarter in overtime, and the D just unfortunately couldn't get a stop. That's what you want to get rid of because he doesn't fit your mold of 6'4", 220, can run like a deer, and can throw like Uncle Rico from Napoleon Dynamite. I've never seen someone celebrated less for doing more with the odds he had to fight to get where he's been, where the luck of injuries between Lance and Jimmy getting hurt that same year in 2022, but then running with it and then getting hurt at the end of the 2022 playoffs, rehabbing like crazy, people doubting, is his career going to be over? You really can only point to Nick Mullins in terms of the UCL repair. And what does he have? An MVP caliber season. But the goalposts keep getting pushed back. Well, what can he do without McCaffrey? And he's had McCaffrey and the Avengers and Ayuk and Debo and Kittle. And again, what's Burrow without Mixon and Chase and Tyler Boyd and T. Higgins? What was Peyton Manning? We never knew, really, without all the weapons he had in Indianapolis and Denver. What's Hurts without, Devontae Smith and Goddard and A.J. Brown and now Saquon Barkley? Matthew Stafford without Nakua and Kupp. I mean, there is no great look at all the weapons that Tua has. Trevor Lawrence has weapons. Dak Prescott has always had weapons. Does Jared Goff have weapons? Yes, he does. Does CJ Stroud have weapons? Yeah, I know they've been injured this year, and he's having a subpar year compared to last year, and so is Jordan Love. Dan Marino had weapons. Montana, Rice, Elway. Kirk Cousins with the Vikings. I mean, it's so ridiculous, the narrative that he needs things to be perfect around him to play well when he's played. If he was if he was Daniel Jones, 15 touchdowns and 8 or 10 interceptions the year that Daniel Jones got paid, if that was Brock's stat line with the weapons that he had, then people that are making that argument, then it would hold some water. But Brock had a superlative season last year. And he's had a very good 16 games beyond that. Again, over 4,000 yards, 26-12. His touchdown to interception ratio is better than anybody that I mentioned previously. Love, Tua, Lawrence, Hurts, Prescott, Murray, all the quarterbacks that are on his tier. You got to get away. Everyone's got to get away from the narrative that if you're not elite, if you're not top 4 or top 5, you got to get thrown out and someone else has to come in. If you do that, then you're in QB purgatory forever. There are teams like the Jets, like the Browns, Falcons, pre-Kirk Cousins. I know he had a 4-interception performance yesterday. Let's just stick with the Jets. All you heard about the Jets last year was even if they just get average quarterback play, they're going to go to an AFC championship game based on what they did last year with Zach Wilson. Do you want to argue they're getting average quarterback play from Aaron Rodgers? I mean, it's not like he's 10 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. I mean, he's statistically playing better than what Zach Wilson did at this point in the season. The whole team, the defensive line, they can't stop the run. They're not giving the ball to Breece Hall enough. I mean, again, it's more than Aaron Rodgers, but there are teams out there that would kill for even average quarterback play. And average quarterback play is so far below where Brock is. People calling him, he's always a mid quarterback. No, dude, you're a mid brain. You're a mid fan. You have mid intelligence about football, about the 49ers, and probably about life and other things in general. You are one of the mid human beings that, how dumb the average person is. Then you have to figure there's 50% of the people that are dumber than that. That's where the vast majority of Brock haters lives, or generally people on the internet that make such bold black and white statements that they're right about something and the earth's flat or this and that about politics or ridiculous. Justin Tucker misses 3 kicks yesterday for the Ravens. The media are asking John Harbaugh, the coach, is he going to move on from Justin Tucker? What? He can't have a bad game? No one's allowed to have a bad game. Otherwise, they have to get cut and moved on. This is how stupid people are. That question being asked of John Harbaugh, unless there's something wrong with Tucker, if he's injured or something, you're not moving on from the greatest kicker of all time unless he has a precipitous fall for an extended period of time. And this may not be his greatest season, but he's still a top 5 kicker in the league. But this is what morons do. This is what stupid people need. They need to make a proclamation based on instant gratification or wanting instant gratification of some sort of change being made based on a very small sample size. That is what midbrains do. That is what weak-minded, weak ego, let me get my opinion out there and try to seem like I'm strong or edgy or smart. That's what losers do. Losers don't think critically. Losers don't think long-term, either forward or backward in terms of what's best for the team. Losers have an immediacy to them where they think they know the answer. You know them wherever you're listening from on Sports Talk Radio. Let me turn into my Northeast fan voice. Well, you got to fire Robert Saleh because, he's not good and he's not a leader of men. I don't care who you bring in. I don't care who it is. It's going to be better than Robert Saleh. Jeff Ulbrich, he's not Robert Saleh. He's somebody different. Are they better with Jeff Ulbrich? Are the Bears going to be better with whoever the hell they have at their interim head coach now, who was the offensive coordinator? And granted, Matt Eberflus was a special kind of stupid for what he did on Thanksgiving Day. And there's people that are banging on Jake Moody now, and I know he's an easy target for missing field goals. One beauty of a quote, someone who his profession is in social media or media in general, radio. Moody was brought in to make kicks like this. All right, are we going to really nail Jake Moody for missing a 45-yard field goal wide left a little bit in these conditions? And then you're going to complain that he missed a 55-yard field goal at the end of the half, 10 yards farther where it was on line but short. But we brought Moody in to make those kind of kicks. You serious? You realize the only reason that 55-yarder was tried was because it was the end of the half? If it was a 4th down in any other quarter, any other situation in the game, they're punting. My God. But to go back to the Brock stuff, guys, just because Brock's not top 5 does not mean he's useless. Otherwise, then Love is useless. Tua, Trevor Lawrence, Jalen Hurts, Dak Prescott, Jared Goff, Kyler Murray, CJ Stroud, and a host of other quarterbacks. Everybody should be dumped. Everybody should be dumped because they're not the guy. They're not top 5. They're not Mahomes. They're not Burrow. They're not Allen. They're not Lamar. You want to throw Justin Herbert in there? You want to throw Matthew Stafford, even though he's on the back 9 of his career? You're not a top 5, top 6 quarterback. You're not worth it. This is why you are not a general. These fans are not general managers. This is why these fans probably run their Madden teams into the ground. These are why these fans probably have horrendous fantasy football teams, because they can't understand personnel decisions or football, situational football, choosing the right player. But let me posit this to you, to everybody. What if Brock won the Super Bowl this past February, doing nothing different? Nothing different at all. Same stat line, nothing different. Meaning, if at the end of the 4th quarter, Brock leaves with a 3-point lead and the defense gets a stop, how do you think these assholes are feeling about Brock Purdy right now? Switch it to overtime. Say the game goes to overtime. Brock Purdy does the same thing. Leads his team down for a field goal, up 3. And what if Steve Wilkes and the defense get a stop on that 4th and 1 where Mahomes ran a keeper, or any time previously or after gets a stop, gets a sack, a pick, strip sack, fumble recovery, anything? I guarantee you these stupid assholes will be looking at Brock a whole lot differently. But Brock didn't do anything differently in the game to win the game. It would have been the defense getting a stop when they needed to. Brock probably would have been MVP, and the whole Brock narrative would be different. Think about that. Think about the words and the situation I just painted. Brock does nothing differently in the Super Bowl through the fourth quarter or through overtime. They win the Super Bowl. He or Juwan Jennings, I shouldn't forget about him, are MVP. Now Brock's worth $50 million. Now Brock's a franchise quarterback. Now all the hate, or a lot of the hate that, Brock and Kyle are getting, is absolved. And just leave it on the offensive side of the ball, right? Any offensive hate would be absolved because they got the win. They beat Mahomes and Reed, got the monkey off their back. Although Brock and Kyle did nothing differently. It was just the defense getting a stop. But you also know these morons would still be complaining about this year, because even if Kyle had gotten a Super Bowl in 2019 or one last year in 2023, or hell, both, it's still, what have you done for me lately? If this team was still 5-7, there'd still be bitching and whining and complaining. And, well, Kyle got lucky and won or both of those Super Bowls. He should be gone. And Brock's still not the guy. And this, obviously, you can't please everybody all the time. But the immediacy of fans, the short-term memory, the overall stupidity, the knuckle-dragging, mouth-breathing nature of most fans, of most people, is at odds what I'm about with this podcast and in general, because I am oppositional defiant to stupid. I am not a rocket scientist. I am rarely the smartest one in the room. But I'm logical, I'm pragmatic, I do my research, and I can examine both sides of a story. I can diagnose things very quickly, not meaning medical stuff, but in my profession, in life, I can see the end. I can see the light at the end of the tunnel. I can see where the final piece of the puzzle fits a lot quicker than a lot of people I know. And I'll just say that from a work standpoint. This isn't bragging. I'm the Brock of podcasters. I process things very quickly. I make right decisions very quickly. I'm not the tallest person, the fastest, the strong. Imagine if the Niners had won the Super Bowl and Brock did nothing differently. How much the narrative would have changed about him and how stupid that actually is. Now, I just quickly wanted to touch upon the injury bug, and I spoke about it last podcast, but I just wanted to touch upon it again. I said I hate to use it as a reason why the Niners are 5-7. It's a contributing factor. The Niners are 5-7 because they blew three leads in the NFC West, any one of which would have them tied for the division lead right now. Or no, actually tied for second place right now. I'm going to go into something else that would have had the Niners atop the division, but in case you didn't hear it last podcast, 2020, the COVID year, we all know was a disaster. Niners ended up 6-10. A lot of games missed by a lot of star players or players that played meaningful snaps. And I went, again, did the research, which a lot of people on social media don't do, or they get bad research. They'll just quote someone that was a moron and keep perpetuating the same stupidness. We see this a lot in politics. In 2020, 89 games were missed by players who played meaningful snaps for the team. Obviously headlined by someone like a Bosa, who missed 14 games, a Sherman, who missed 11, Jimmy missed 10, Debo missed 9, Kittle missed 8. And there's a host of others that, missed a handful of games here or there. 89. The Niners right now, the 2024 San Francisco 49ers, players that have played meaningful snaps or are meaningful to the team, as of right now, 95 games were missed. Headlined by Hargrave, done for, will miss 14 games. McCaffrey, now after that injury, he's going to miss 13 games. Dre Greenlaw, who knows when he's going to come back, but as of the Bills game, he's missed 12 games. Ayuk's missed 10 games. Yetur Gross-Matos has missed 6. Charvarius Ward has missed 4. And then a handful of other players have missed a handful of games. 95 meaningful games missed by the 2024 49ers, 89 games missed by the 2020 Niners. And guess what? The 2024 49ers have 5 games to go. So that number is only going to go up. It can't possibly go down. It's only going to go up. If the Niners were a healthy team, and there's no such thing as fully healthy in the NFL, but as healthy as they were last season, or had 50% fewer injuries, fewer games missed, and I'd have to go back and see how many games missed meaningful snap wise was last season. But if they were close to or slightly more injured than last season, and they were 5-7, different story. Then there's a lot more angst and anger for what's going on with this team. I'm not thrilled that they're 5-7. Of course I'm not. None of us are. But people are getting to the point where they think, oh, time to blow it up. They completely missed their window. Time to blow it up and start over. These people are also known as morons. It's not the Niners' year, but everybody seems to want a pound of flesh, and drastic measures seem to be the ones that make people happy. Will this team look differently in 2025 than this year? Absolutely. But it's a retool. It's a reload. And it's a quest to get a little bit younger and do some things on the coaching staff. Let's kind of run through this. They're going to need to fire special teams Brian Schneider. No need to explain why. We all know. They're going to need to fire Nick Sorensen. This defense, forget yesterday because everyone was playing on ice skates, but for this whole season, this defense has not been nearly aggressive enough to play to the talents of the personnel. You can't have this good of a team, this talented of a team, be a read and react, rush 4, drop 7 defense. And Chris Collinsworth incorrectly said yesterday, like, oh, correctly said, you just can't rush 4 and without Bosa and drop 7 and expect things to work. I anticipate seeing more blitzes today. That wasn't going to happen. One, because there were only 18 passes thrown by Josh Allen, and Nick Sorensen just doesn't fucking blitz. And I don't think the inclement weather, I don't know if that scared him off from blitzing more or less. Who knows? But Sorensen had an 11-game sample size before that in terms of being one of the teams that blitzes the least in the league. Wasn't going to change. And you replace Nick Sorensen either with Jeff Ulbrich, who was, by many accounts, either the first or second choice of Kyle Shanahan. If Shanahan actually reached out to Bill Belichick and asked if he wanted to be D coordinator, I guess that was the first choice. But you bring back Ulbrich because he was a 49er, not on the staff, I don't think, but he was a linebacker. If Stefanski and people get canned in Cleveland, you look at Jim Schwartz, right? That's a defense you have problems with, Kyle, that the Niners offense has problems with. Why wouldn't less innovative offenses, less talented players on offense have problems with a Jim Schwartz defense? And maybe we even look at Mike Zimmer of the Dallas Cowboys. These are I know the Cowboys aren't having a great year. Yeah, they won, their last 2 games. They beat Washington and the pitiful Giants. Mike Zimmer's forgotten more about defensive football than Nick Sorensen knows at this point. Any one of those coaches would be an upgrade. I don't know who they're going to get. They should not. And just because the Niners look good, top 10 or top 5 overall defense in terms of yards allowed and top 7, in some areas, pass defense, run defense, we all can agree it's not, the numbers are deceiving for sure. The points scored, points allowed, middle third or worse, bottom half of the league. Not getting stops when they need to, not preventing 7s when they need 3s, and not preventing 0s when 3s get put on the board. Sorensen needs to be gone, and it cannot be someone from the staff. Cannot be someone from this staff. Needs to be an outside hire. Ulbrich will be available. People say bring back Robert Saleh. I don't know. I don't think Saleh comes back. I think you would see that as a backward move, like running back to Kyle. He's going to have offers. Saleh's going to be somewhere. I don't think it's going to be in San Francisco. I'd be fine with Ulbrich. The run defense does concern me with Jeff Ulbrich, but then again, they did lose 2 or 3 important players on the Jets D line. And Jim Schwartz had a number 1 defense last year. I don't think he's going to forget how to coach defensive football coming to San Francisco if he does come. And I will be totally fine with Mike Zimmer as well. Let's talk about some players. Here's who you're going to let walk, San Francisco. And we know a lot of these, right? Charvarius Ward is going to. So I went through this quick exercise. I'm probably going to go through it maybe again as the season wears on, because you're going to hear a lot about people saying the Niners are an old team. They're old. The window's closed. I'm going to explode the old myth now, and I'm going to keep exploding the old myth on future podcasts and certainly into the off season. But let's go through it quickly. These are players you have to let walk. Charvarius Ward. They signed Demo. He's gone. He's going to be 29, a little bit older. And 30 is going to be the benchmark for old. Devondre Campbell played better in recent weeks. 31 going to be 32. Let him walk. Talanoa Hufanga. I think you're going to have to let him walk. I'm totally comfortable with Mustafa taking his place. I know people have, Jair Brown under fire. You got to go cheap somewhere. And doesn't mean that they can't bring an Adrian Amos, back. I know Tashawn Gibson's on the roster. They're going to let him walk. He's 34, 35 years old. So they're going to get younger at safety as well. Hufunga's going to command more money than the Niners are going to want to spend. I think he's gone. You let go of one or two of these, cornerbacks, Isaac Yiadom and Rocky Cinderbolt, 28. Nick McLeod, who actually I think got the start in the nickel, is 26. Maybe he comes back for his backup role plus being able to play special teams. But if Yiadom or Yasin go, and they'd probably be more prone to bringing back Yiadom than Yasin, you're going to get younger at cornerback there. Aaron Banks, you got to let walk. He's 28. I think I'm a fan of Ben Barch. I think he showed out pretty well in the snow yesterday. And I think if he gets another start, the Niners are going to sign him to a fraction of what Aaron Banks is going to get. And that difference in play is not enough to justify bringing Aaron Banks back. John Feliciano is gone. He's going to retire. Knee's not responding. 32 years old. Going to get younger at backup offensive lineman. Eric Saubert's going to be gone. He hasn't shown out tremendously as a blocker, at least with the big holds that we have front of our mind. 31 years old. They're going to need to find someone in the draft or a younger tight end than Eric Sauber. And one of these quarterbacks, Josh Dobbs, 29, Brandon Allen, going to be 33, is going to be gone as well. Going to get younger at the backup quarterback position, even though, does that really matter? If Brock doesn't get hurt, does it matter if you have a 29 or a 33-year-old playing quarterback? Although it was interesting that Dobbs was the number 2 quarterback in the Buffalo game and Brandon Allen was relegated to number 3, because earlier on in the week, I think Kyle stated, or at least there was media reports, that Brandon Allen was going to be the number 2. Maybe Kyle finally saw what a lot of us, including myself, saw in the preseason, that Josh Dobbs is the better playmaker than Brandon Allen. To me, you're going to cut Javon Hargrave, who's going to be 32. You cut him with a post-June 1st designation. You save $20 million on the cap. Seems like a no-brainer, unless he drastically reworks his contract. I think it's time to cut Jake Brendel, 32 years old as well. If they actually wait until after June 1st, saves $1.8 million on the cap. And I don't know if that means someone like Nick Sakiel gets a run as a cheap, maybe bridge center to drafting somebody. But you got 2 32-year-olds that are going to be more than likely gone from the team. Maybe you trade Debo, who's going to be 29 years old. If you do, post June 1st, saves $5 million on the cap. Now, Debo reworked his contract, so I don't know if that makes him more or less likely to stay, but he's a possibility to be traded. Now, I think they're going to extend Kittle and Warner. Kyle cannot find a viable tight end too. Kittle is still a top 3 tight end in this league, probably the best all-around tight end in this league. And you see the production that drops off significantly when he's not in it. And they wouldn't extend him for anything crazy, maybe an additional 2 years. And maybe at some point his role evolves from being an inline blocking tight end to maybe being flexed out wide, or in the slot, like what the Chiefs do with Travis Kelce. And Warner, a beast, playing on a fractured ankle. Extending him, even if it's just extending another year or two, combined, that's going to free up at least $15 million in cap space. $20 million from Hargrave, another 15 from extensions. That's $35 million with already $48 million rolling over. You're talking $83 million in cap space, and they could still do restructures and other extensions that can get them more. So the demise of the Niners or salary cap space, they're not going to have it for Brock, or if you pay Brock, you can't pay anybody else, is a fallacy. And whatever they don't spend in 2025 gets rolled over into 2026. And going into 2026, they can make either extensions or restructures or cut players then who have higher cap hits in 2026. I trust in Parag and John Lynch and whoever is counting the beans to be smart bean counters and keep the Niners books above water so they will never turn into the New Orleans Saints, who are over the cap, at least $50 million every season. And players I'm not sure about, Greenlaw, coming off the Achilles. Does he play next week against the Bears or the Thursday after that against the Rams? Kyle's not so sure. I'm sure he wants to show that he's healthy to get a big market deal somewhere. It's possible he comes back with a sit to the 49ers, either on a short-term prove-it type deal or something long-term if he really wants to be playing with Warner, and this defense. But you could see him. If he's able to get the bag somewhere else, he gets the bag. Good for him. And Kyle Juszczyk, not because of the fumble, guys. I mean, let's not get, oh, you got to cut him. You got to cut him because he fumbled. I mean, what did he really do? He's still a mismatch for linebackers. He is almost the de facto tight end too because of the looks he gets in the passing game. Still a good lead blocker. He's maybe not the offensive weapon he was when they signed him back in 2017, but he's only under contract for one more year, right? I think he's a leader on the team. I think, and not because he's part of the Cabo clique and people are going to complain about that, he still has a role. He still adds something to the offense. And Kyle could potentially continue to use that unless other running backs get involved in the passing game where they find a viable tight end too. I'm still not sure why Logan Thomas wasn't brought back. Something must be really, really wrong with his leg. I'm not sure if there's something wrong with his lower body or if he actually did get signed by another team. But the fact that he wasn't part of the 53 and then was brought back on the practice squad, I think, for a couple of weeks, and then released, very, very weird just to not have another viable receiving option to Kittle. But could have with these moves, and I just did this quickly. The Niners are going to put more thought into it than me, and fans are going to put more thought into it. Me, just going to be worse thought. It's going to be less intelligent thought. Could have $80+ million in cap space in 2025, a third of their cap open, free before they extend Brock, which they will, to the tune of low to mid 50s per year. People are saying I would have Brock, play his fourth year contract out and then make a decision. Do you think Brock or his representatives are going to do that? Jordan Love gets paid on 9 good games. Brock's not going to get paid for 2 good seasons when you do the math. 2023, 5 games in 2022, and it's 11 games right now, but it'll be 16 more games this year. Love gets paid based on a much smaller sample, but Brock won't. Trevor Lawrence gets paid on a worse resume. Tua gets paid on a worse resume. Hurts gets paid on a comparable resume, and they're not going to pay. They're just not. Forget giving him $30-40 million a year insult per year. Just not pay him and let him play out his 4th year contract. Did Bosa? Did Ayuk? Did Debo? Those are 3 players that are less important individually than Brock Purdy is to this team and this offense. Those 3 players did not play on their final year. They made varying degrees of bitchiness on social media and otherwise complaining about it. Bosa, not so much. I don't really recall, but that the diva receivers went that route with Debo in 2022 or 2021, whenever 19, 20, 21, in 2022. And then obviously Ayuk last year with all the social media nonsense. Brock's not going to do that. Brock's a leader. He's not going to do that shit, but he's not a moron either. And neither is his agent. You think his agent's going to want to pass up getting, I don't know, what is it? 5% of whatever or more of whatever Brock's contract's going to be. He's not stepping on the field next season without a contract. There is no way. I don't care what you want, Mr. High profile ivory tower content creator. It's not going to happen. He's going to be getting 50+ million. It's just a matter of how high into the 50s. And yes, I agree he shouldn't be getting a market resetting deal more than Dak, but his agent's going to point to that. The Niners are probably going to start it at 45 because they're going to start low and his agent's going to start high. So if you meet in the middle, that's what, $52.5 million a year? Probably fair, but they'll still point at, well, look at Love making 55 a year. Look at Lawrence making 55 a year. Brock's done more than those 2. Brock should get paid more than those 2. When you take your emotions out of it, if it was you as Brock, if you were Brock or his agent, negotiate or in a job situation where you knew what other people were getting paid, what the market was paying, are you going to accept less? Of course not. But when it's not your money and you think you can have opinions about what's going in another man's wallet or a woman's purse or wallet or money bin like Scrooge McDuck, then you think you're smarter than everybody else. Then these fans think, well, it doesn't matter. Your opinion is wrong. Your opinion is wrong based on the market. Your opinion is wrong based on what agents and Brock's going to ask for. Your opinion is wrong based on what's actually going to happen. And your opinion is wrong based on the value that the Niners place on Brock. If there's any narrative out there that Kyle doesn't trust Brock and he's going to wait for Cousins to get cut, and stupid, nonsensical bullshit for click engagement. That's all it is. Brock's getting paid, guys. Cope now or celebrate now, because you're going to have a franchise quarterback for the foreseeable future. So the end result, let's just quickly wrap this up. We knew they were going to lose these 2 games. We knew it. It was ugly with Brandon Allen. Didn't look much better with Brock. Granted, the elements were and the injuries were a factor, but they were never going to win this game regardless. So you move on. You're 5-7. Before we get there, I don't harp on the Packer game or the Bills game. I harp on the division games. Those are the killers. Those are the killers. Not winning one of those games to get to 6-6. If you want to argue, I'm not going to say, well, they should have won all 3. Yeah, great. Being super conservative, they should have won 1. Being kind of conservative, they should have won 2. I think it's maybe unrealistic to say they should have won all 3, because then if you're a Rams fan, Seahawks fan, or Cardinal fan, you should say, well, we should have won that game. Like it's going to work both ways, right? But winning 2 of those games gets them at 7-5, either tied with the Seahawks or a game above if one of those wins was a Seahawk victory. Or you can look at it this way. This is how, football's being a game of inches, or how individual plays or individual drives can change the course of team seasons. If the Niners had beaten Seattle, which was a very winnable game, and Aaron Rodgers yesterday for the Jets does not throw a pick 6 up 21-7, the Jets very well win that game. Hell, he had the throw right before that to Garrett Wilson where he overthrowed it. They could have been up 28-7 with that touchdown, or just a field goal, not throwing that pick 6, 24-7. I guarantee you they would have beaten Seattle. And then the Niners are 6-6, Seattle's 5-7, and the Niners are tied with the Rams and the Cardinals for first place. And you feel better about the next 5 games moving forward. 5 games moving forward, than you are 5-7 looking up at everybody in the NFC West. This team's not going to tank. Anybody calling for a tank, it doesn't happen, guys. Maybe outside of the NBA, and even the NBA tanking is stupid because of the lottery system. They're not going to go into tank mode. Not purposefully. All the injuries that they've had makes it an unplanned tank, an inadvertent tank in a way. What's more possible than a tank is that the Niners win the next 2 games. I'm not calling it right now. We'll make our predictions on Thursday, but they have Chicago and the Rams at home. Now, the Bears are going to get a little bit of a boost from the Eberflus firing. You're going to get that interim head coach boost, but the Bears are not a very good team. And the Rams are what they are. They're 6-6. They struggled with the Saints, who are an even worse team. But there's the real chance that there's a better chance of them getting to 7-7 than being 5-9. And if you get to 7-7, you don't apologize for it, and you look at the next 3 games at Miami, at home for Detroit, and at Arizona as all hands on deck. Because if you can get to 7-7, then there's a thought of, shit, maybe we can get to 10-7 and just see what happens. I'm not betting on that. I've been saying for the past 2 months, their ceiling is 10-7. And I'm not saying they're going to get there. The best they can do, literally now, is 10-7. Because they have 5 games left and they're a 5-7 team. I'm not saying they're getting there, but I was right. As of today, I was right 2 months ago that their ceiling is 5-7. As of today, their ceiling is 5-7. Now, if they drop a game next week to the Bears, and their ceiling is 9-8. But at least as of today, I can hang my hat on that. And it's not like I'm no brainchild or brain surgeon or rocket scientist or anything, but I can look at things somewhat logically, not be a homer, not be a hater, not be a doom and gloom, piss and vinegar type anything, not being an irrational, blow it all up. You got to get rid of Kyle and get rid of trade Brock and keep looking for your quarterback. Yeah, that's smart. So much smartness on the internet. The X, Twitter, a haven of Mensa members. Guys sucked. They lost the 2 games. Splitting would have been great, but with the injuries and especially Brock out at Green Bay, they had 0 chance. And as okay as it looked going up 3-0, the avalanche happened soon after. And Again, me picking the Bills 30-13. I overestimated the Niners and I underestimated Buffalo. So I apologize to both those teams. And to anyone out there that, I don't know, teased up the spread to 18 or something, something ridiculous and didn't win. I know that sounds ridiculous and didn't make a lot of sense. But we'll see moving forward, right? We'll see moving forward. A lot of complaining is going to be happening between now and Sunday. A lot of ridiculous takes out there, but that's what the internet and Twitter specifically is for. Just remember, they're in it until they're not, and they're still in it. Although I am projecting nothing, I'm predicting nothing, I'm promising nothing. Except they have the Bears and the Rams up next. That's different than if they had the Chiefs and the Ravens up next, right, guys? This is a team that can lose to any team, but they can hang around, and they are a team that can beat the Bears and the Rams. It might tease us to get to 7-7, maybe just to drop the next 3, but it's going to keep us watching, keep us interested, and not worrying about where they are draft pick wise just yet. So that concludes the podcast for today. Like always, I want to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to make us part of your listening routine. Monday Night Football tonight, Broncos, Browns, don't care other than for fantasy football reasons. And then San Francisco has, the next 6 days to get ready for the Matt Eberflus-less Chicago Bears and trying to get back to 500 with a 2-game homestand. Until now, when we speak again, everyone, stay happy, healthy, and safe, and we will talk soon. Take care.